What's up, guys, and welcome to One Take. I'm Gil, and today we're talking about The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7, also known as Chapter 15, The Believer. Like I said, I'm Gil, and I'm here with my good friends, Dan.
Hello.
And Jeremy.
Hello.
Let's jump into it. Well, first off, apologies that we're a little bit late here. We were supposed to go live Friday. I was busy, my fault, but we pulled it together for today. First, overall thoughts on this episode of The Mandalorian. I'll jump into it and then pass it over to you guys. I'll say I really enjoyed this episode. For me, it was one of the better episodes this season, just as a standalone adventure, and really for two main reasons. We got to see something a little bit different when it came to the action and when it came to some of the ways they built up tension. On the action side of things, we got to see the Mandalorian a little bit more vulnerable. He was out of his best car, and him versus the pirates, I really enjoyed that whole action sequence. Then the scene of Mayfeld, Mando, and the Imperial officer almost felt like something out of a Quentin Tarantino movie. Maybe not quite on the same level, but it was dialogue-driven tension, made all the more enjoyable by the fact that Din Djarin was without his helmet, so we got to see his face, which I think added to the emotion of that scene. And for those reasons, I really enjoyed the episode. There were a few silly things we'll get to, but other than that, solid episode. Jeremy, what did you think?
Yeah, totally agree. And agree with the Tarantino comparison. Also, I feel like it was hard not to get shades of the underground bar scene when he's trying to not be found out there, and that whole sequence, which was great. It was almost like that was what I wanted from Giancarlo Esposito all season, was some kind of moment like that. And I'm even though he wasn't a part of it, I'm glad that we have gotten a scene like that. Mm-hmm. It was really, really good. I feel like I was dead wrong. I think like 5 episodes ago, I was like, nah, definitely not taking the helmet off this season, but was totally happy to be wrong about that. I thought it was really well done. I thought the action was tied in an interesting way too. And I thought an episode that on its face, I maybe wasn't necessarily that excited about, like, oh, well, in order to, first we got to get Bill Burr, but well, if you need me, you got to use this other thing. Seemed like it maybe could have gotten a little fillery, but I didn't think it was at all. I really liked the way they handled it. I thought the tension was very unique to this, what we've seen so far. And yeah, I really liked it.
Awesome. Agreed with all those comments, especially feeling a little bit uneasy going into this episode, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but the Prison Break episode last season, not one of my favorites. And this had the same director. It seemed to be setting up for a prison break, so I was worried and was very happily proven wrong about my concerns. Dan, what did you think of the episode?
Yeah, I was going to start there. I think this one was very pleasantly surprising for me. I kind of also, like you said, Gil, I would put this one about on par with episode 3 this season in terms of my like next tier of favorites. I thought it was really good as a standalone. Definitely subverted all of my expectations. You know, we were texting before the episode going in last week and like, all right, well, we got another prison break, guys. And I thought that, I almost think they were intentionally trying to set us up for, Prison Break round 2, and then we got the quote prison break. He broke out of prison in the cold open, and it was a pretty seamless, pretty painless process. So I thought that was nice. Yeah, I think for me the big thing about this week that just really pleasantly surprised me was how much this episode tackled the kind of morally gray areas of the galaxy. I mean, Star Wars has obviously been about as black and white, light and dark as any big franchise can get. So the fact that they were sort of, willing to go there, willing to show the Empire saving the day, bailing out our heroes from the pirates, willing to show, Bill Burr's character, Migs Mayfeld have a kind of a redemption arc. That was great. There was a lot of nuance there that I thought has been missing from a lot of, the new Star Wars stories that I really appreciated. And yeah, like you guys said, seeing Din Djarin in the flesh, a little contrived, but ultimately I thought the fact that we got there this way was great. He felt really vulnerable in that scene in a good way, and I was really happy with this one.
Yeah, I think Mayfeld, who came off as a little bit of a cartoon character when we first met him, I always remember the line when he saw the New Republic officer's shoes. Nice shoes you got there. That was kind of, that stuck in my head. And here he cracks a similar joke early on, something about how volatile the explosives are. And he's like, kind of like this one over here. And nobody really reacts to it. So they kind of shut that down immediately. And then he becomes more of a three-dimensional character. Like you said, Dan, we get some of the redemption arc. I love redemption arcs. So I thought they really elevated his character. Also, we should shout out a couple folks in the chat. Ninja says, I'm a believer. I don't know if Justin Bieber, did I miss a cameo or something? Or is that just out of nowhere? I don't know.
I mean, I think it's, the title. I was like,
Believer, of course.
The Believer, yeah. Can we talk about the title for a second? Because
sure.
I think I'm still struggling to, obviously it's a reference to Miggs Mayfeld and his sort of world view, galaxy view, if you will, and how that kind of rubs off on Mando. But it seems like it's not exactly the right way to describe this kind of introduction of morality that we've been given. Like, what is he a believer in necessarily?
Yeah, I will say in general, sometimes I feel like these titles reach a little bit. Like a few episodes back, I forgot to comment on it. It might have been last episode, but the tragedy. And I thought, is it really a tragedy if Grogu just got kidnapped and we're probably going to get him back?
Right.
I would say
Killed.
If it is reversible, it can't be a tragedy by definition. Tragedy would be he got killed. Am I wrong there? I don't know.
I think that's a good definition of tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also have, by the way, the Lowdown Show says, hello, friends. Hello, the Lowdown Show. Glad you can make it, even though it was an unscheduled stream. And by the way, this is massive. The Mandalorian has just joined the chat. He says hello there. So
whoa,
we got to be on our best behavior here.
The guy himself. For a second, I thought he was the other guy.
Nicely done, Dan. All right, let's jump into the episode. Let's go into our recap. We start off with the cold open. We see Mayfield in prison working in some kind of a scrapyard. Then a droid shows up and says, inmate 34667, which is, I guess, Mayfield. And he is taken to go see the Marshal, Cara Dune, who brings him to go see Mando, Boba Fett, and Fennec. Mayfield used to be part of the Empire, so they need his help in finding Moff Gideon's coordinates. Mayfield agrees to help, and in order to get those coordinates, they need to bring him to an internal Imperial terminal. He suggests Morak, where there is a secret Imperial mining hub, where they are mining Ridonium, a highly volatile and explosive item, and the refinery has anti-aircraft cannons, lots of security, so they're going to have to be sneaky. So let's start there. Jeremy, what did you think of Mayfield's reintroduction here, the prison, and his agreement to join this mission?
Yeah, I mean, I to repeat myself a little bit, I think this was when I was maybe most worried that it was going to be a total, like, it had a very similar setup to when we go back to see Grief Karga again. Like, they get to town, oh, there's this other thing that we got to do in this place, and I know exactly where it is, and it's very convenient that I figured out right away what our mission is. And also, like, much as I enjoy Bill Burr, like, the first 15 things he says are one-line quips, maybe until he delivers that information about going to this place, and the robot comes over, he's like, what, I can't keep working here, and whatever else he says, or hey, where are you taking me? Most people say what they're doing when they ask you to follow them. Again, I like him, but I was like very nervous at this point that it was just going to be a go do a thing, which I guess it kind of was, but I don't know, they expanded on a lot more than that, but I liked it. It was good. If you had forgotten kind of what his character was all about, they make sure that you are fully aware of what his character is all about in 30 seconds, and they set up what the episode's going to be about. So I was fine with it. There's more cool new Star Wars stuff. You're seeing weird, like, prison droids tell people what to do, and I liked it. Good world building stuff.
Yeah, that's a thing this show kind of consistently does. It keeps showing us little corners of Star Wars we don't normally get to see. We see what a prison looks like in Star Wars to some extent. We see TIE fighters as scraps in a sort of a garbage pile, which you don't normally get to see. I will also point out, I find the idea of a prison in Star Wars kind of funny because it's easy to forget that there is any sort of rule of law in this galaxy, how often people are blasting each other away. So I feel like if you get caught and thrown in prison, like, you really kind of screwed up. But Dan, anything to add?
That's good. That's a good call. No, it's a good call about seeing. This is the first time we've seen the quote "good guys prison," right? And I think that sort of sets the table for the kind of moral gray area, like I was talking about, to come. This is a New Republic prison, so they're not wasting away in cells like we saw. Actually, we saw Jyn Erso in the beginning of Rogue One in like an Imperial prison for a second, and so it's a little different. I think they intentionally show us deconstructing the scraps of old Imperial fighters. It's a little bit more productive, but yeah, at the end of the day, I agree. It was some good world building. I'm glad they kind of got him out right off the bat in the cold open, and kind of jump started the story right off the bat.
And the Lowdown Show says Boba Fett's new armor paint job was nice, which I did notice that did look nice. It was kind of cool seeing Boba Fett there. I half expected him to it's just cool to see him stick around. It's kind of surprising. Going into the season, I would have expected an appearance. I would not have expected him to essentially temporarily join the cast of the show.
It's the shiniest Boba Fett we've ever seen, to my knowledge.
Very true.
Yeah. Did he clean it? It's like he either cleaned it or painted it or both.
I think it was actually a little bit of both.
It kind of it looked weird. I don't know if I like it. It's like it's so unexpected that I was like, I don't know. Like,
interesting.
Why would he clean it after all that?
This might be just a sort of new generation versus old generation of Star Wars fans. Not that I can really say I'm a newer generation than both of you, but you guys were like super fans of the original trilogy, where I was kind of a latecomer. So I saw this, I was like, cool. But you guys probably feel like they're throwing new paint on something that was a part of your childhood. I think
it's such a signature, like the Star Wars. There's a million differences between Star Wars and Star Trek, and that doesn't always have to be the comparison. But I feel like the Star Wars thing is that it's all dinged up and dirty and dusty and used, and the Star Trek thing is that it's like shiny and sleek and. Anyway, that's an extreme because Boba Fett got his helmet painted. That's maybe I'm going.
I'm done with this show.
They totally lost me. And when did he do it all? By the way,
it's they probably had a painting droid, do it in between scenes. Yeah. Anyway, they are preparing to enter the refinery on what was the name of the planet, Morak, and they're trying to decide who can go in there with Mayfield. Fennec is wanted by the ISB, the Imperial Security Bureau, so she can't go in. Boba Fett says, let's just say they might recognize my face. And Cara can't go in because she'll be on the New Republic register. Mando can't go in because the Mandalorian armor is a dead giveaway. But wait a minute, Mando will go in, but he's not going to show his face. They spot some stormtroopers and decide they're going to steal their armor. New Hope style, go in pretending to be stormtroopers. So they steal the truck, they drop onto a truck, they steal the armor. Cara Dune takes out the stormtroopers inside. And I'll pause there for a second just to say, usually in Star Wars and other movies where the main characters steal the bad guy's uniform, it's always like knock them out, cut to, they're dressed in the uniform. Here I thought it was funny that we got to pause for a second and actually see them somewhat complete the process, where I think Mayfield was complaining about the guy's boots. And, there's a little bit of effort that goes into it you don't normally get to see. Then they get into the truck en route to the refinery. They see some villagers, and that's where we start to get into a little bit of that gray area. Mayfield comments on the villagers saying they're being ruled. They don't care if it's the Empire or the New Republic. It's all the same to these people. He talks about how our beliefs are defined by where we're born. That's why the Mandalorian is a Mandalorian. Mayfield talks about how Mando has rules, but he breaks them whenever he needs to. I kind of enjoyed the moment where he pointed out, is it that you can never take off your helmet, or is it just that you always need to be wearing something on your face? Because there is a difference. And then Mayfield talks about all the casualties of war, people who didn't really have a choice about fighting. I'll pause there. Dan, what did you think of this whole conversation here?
Yeah, this is definitely where I started to lean forward and get really invested in the morally gray stuff. I think, the moment when they drove by the villagers, I thought was pretty powerful. And again, not something we really ever are confronted with in Star Wars. I really can't think of many other instances of, totally innocent, like natives, maybe like Jawa stuff. But I think this was definitely the kind of only moment that comes to mind where they kind of play it for this, in this way and this sort of political kind of point. And it was great. Yeah, I thought it was great. Like you said at the beginning, I really enjoyed the emphasis on kind of more lengthy dialogue scenes and kind of and Mayfeld directly challenging
Mhm.
Mando on the rules of his helmet wearing, because like we talked about in the third episode, when he meets the other Mandalorians who do take off their helmet, I've been really wanting to see more of that struggle of him, being confronted with like, all right, I gotta like eventually, I gotta breathe, I gotta let this mustache breathe a little bit. So yeah, I was glad to see all that develop.
Yeah, completely agreed with all of that. And Jeremy, what did you think of this scene?
Yeah, totally agree. And not to reiterate the same stuff, I also just do want to jump back really quickly. It's such a great line when Boba Fett points out that he better not go in because they might recognize his face. It's just a great, excellent line.
Because they've seen thousands of copies of his face, right?
My
Clone
God.
Armies.
Wow.
Yeah.
I have to confess, I did not catch that. That's fantastic.
Neither did I. I figured it out when Jeremy just said it, and I was going to just go along with it. But if you're going to admit it, I'll say I didn't think of it.
I'm guilty. That was great.
Yeah, it's such a good line. The other note that I had from that early portion was, I think, and maybe I'm forgetting one part, but this was like the most like Daft punky sounding version of the Mando theme that we hear in that section as they're driving through. It kicks up a little bit more as the next part happens, but it was just again another like redressing up of the same simple little Mando theme. That was really, really, really cool. So I liked that, and I agree with everything else that you guys have said so far.
Yeah, I've refrained from commenting on it just because if I did, I would literally mention it every episode. But the music has been absolutely amazing. I mean, from season 1 into season 2, the way they keep taking that theme, it reminds me of old video games. I don't know why this is the one that comes to mind, but Tiny Toon Adventures, Buster Busts Loose. Jeremy, have you played this Super Nintendo game?
I have. I certainly have.
They take the Tiny Toons theme, and every episode, it's the same song over and over, but they put it in a different style. There's a Western version of it, a sort of sci-fi space version of it. So Mandalorian does the same thing, maybe in a more sophisticated way. But it works so well every episode. And just to add a couple things to what both of you said, I love the fact that, again, they take the Mayfield character, add a little bit of depth to him. And so much of this season, I think, every now and then we've seen the Mandalorian's beliefs challenged. And this is maybe the most directly we've seen it challenged, where it's not just a comment here and there. This is a conversation. Mando's got nowhere to go. He has to listen to Mayfield just challenge him. And we can't really tell how Mando is responding to it. He's got the helmet on, but I think we see a payoff to it later. When he takes off his helmet, I've got to think that this whole conversation was a variable in that. It was part of the calculation that got him to be okay with, I'm backed into a corner, got to do what I got to do. I'm going to take the helmet off. So I thought that was great setup. Really enjoyed this scene. Then we get to the scene we alluded to earlier, the pirates attack. And I won't go into a beat by beat. It was like a 5 to 10 minute long action sequence, but I'll just mention I love the hand-to-hand combat in general more than the gun blasting. So that was one reason I really enjoyed the scene. For a moment, it also reminded me a little bit of Mad Max Fury Road. Again, not nearly to the same extent, but just the carnage of people jumping between vehicles. And there's a moment specifically where one of them whacks Mando in the arm and you see shards of his armor fly off. And that was the moment where I remembered he doesn't have his best car armor on right now. So he's physically more vulnerable. And the entire sequence felt close hand-to-hand combat. He's vulnerable, super visceral. One of my favorite action sequences we've seen in a few episodes. Dan, anything to add to this whole Mando versus Pirates sequence?
Not really. Yeah, I think it went on a drop long, and it's sort of the same beats over and over again, just like one skiff, then 2 skiffs, then 8 skiffs, and the kind of cartoony the way the thermal detonators kept multiplying. That shot where like everybody's like activating their thermal detonators like very demonstratively was kind of funny. But yeah, no, I thought it was an effective scene. It kind of had shades of like an Indiana Jones style action thing, or like on top of the moving tank or something. It was good. There's a lot of good banter. It's kind of a classic Star Wars chase / action scene. The banter between the driver and the guy on top. It sort of checked all the boxes.
One of my favorite moves too in a fight is when someone throws a grenade at you and you're able to throw it back right at the last second. And he pulled that off here.
Because you have that sort of sense of timing that the story demands.
I do love the fact that is the rule of cinematic grenades. They will go off I mean, however much time you need in order to throw it back at the enemy. But Jeremy, what did you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I had 2 extra notes on that kind of sequence. One was there's one part, or maybe it's 2 parts, when one of the pirates gets like run over, and it was like incredibly graphic sound design. I was like almost surprised by how intense that was without seeing anything. And also I'm not remembering an instance, but when he first gets out, he goes to shoot the blaster, and it's like it runs out. Like it's like the equivalent of there wasn't another, bullet left in the chamber. Have we seen something like that before? Like it just struck me as a weird, like not Star Wars way to have the gun be a not functional option. Like, I mean, maybe it was malfunctioning as opposed to like out of lasers.
It definitely clicked like it was out of ammo, which now that we're mentioning it, like what is producing that click? Like with a real gun, I think it's the chambers trying to, I don't know the right terminology, but if something physically is happening, maybe it's like a Tesla or like electric cars where they add an engine hum, even though there actually isn't one. They're like, we need to do a click sound to let you know you're out of lasers.
Stay tuned for a spin-off episode of One Take where we dissect the technology of weapons in the Star Wars galaxy.
And we get to Jeremy. Did we cut you off there, or did you have more to say?
No, that's it. Those were the 2.
Well, we get to a moment that Dan, you alluded to earlier, where I don't think we've ever seen this before, but they're saved by TIE fighters, which I thought was a very cool, sort of unexpected visual, followed immediately by a sort of hero's welcome, where the stormtroopers welcoming them into the base. So very cool way, I think, to wrap up that whole sequence. Then it's time to find the terminal so Mayfield can get the coordinates. And they find it in a mess hall, kind of tucked away in a corner. But one of Mayfield's old officers, Valen Hess, is hanging out there. So he's worried about going inside and getting recognized. So Mando agrees to go in, but Mayfield tells him the machine has to scan your face. So Mando takes off his helmet and lets it scan his face. And this is where I said it was a little bit silly. I love the fact that he took his helmet off, but I felt it was a little bit contrived how he got there because I don't understand the logic of this machine. I understand if it's scanning your face to see if you're an authorized user, but I guess it's literally just if you have a face, you can access the machine. It's just making sure you do have a face.
Very anti-droid.
Exactly. But still, I thought it was cool that he took his helmet off. I enjoyed that. So he gets the coordinates, but then Valen Hess wants to talk to him. Mando doesn't really know what to say. He kind of starts yammering. Mayfield comes into the rescue, sort of gets the conversation flowing, and then Valen wants to sit down and have a drink with them. He congratulates them on being the only successful shipment of the day. I guess everybody else got taken out by pirates. When Valen starts saying, "What should we toast to?" Mayfield says, how about a toast to Operation Cinder? And he's talking about some battle he was involved in where thousands of innocent people had their lives lost, where they ended up destroying an entire city, it sounds like. And this officer tries to write it off, saying they're all heroes of the Empire. Mayfield says, yeah, and all dead. At that moment, Mando kind of shakes his head, saying, let's not head in this direction. Let's just keep our heads down and get out of here. But Mayfield can't take it. He takes out his gun, shoots Valen, which leads them to have to shoot their way out of the building. They get to the side of the building. Kara and Fennec from a distance pick people off with their sniper rifle. Then Fett flies in, picks them up, and they take off. Before they fly away, Mayfield takes out a gun, shoots some explosives, and blows up half the building. TIE fighters chase after them. Fett drops this awesome bomb that blows them up. You get kind of a blue sonic boom type of effect, and they're out of there. So a lot happened there. Dan, you gave me the kind of okay, like you were a big fan of that moment. What did you think of this whole sequence?
Yeah, I think Jeremy and I are geeking out about the same thing here. It's the seismic charges as the sort of cherry on top of this whole sequence, which is sort of a callback. Not sort of, is a callback to a very cool sequence in episode 2 between Jango Fett and Obi-Wan. They're having a pursuit through the asteroid belt, and Jango Fett drops those charges to basically like get him off his tail. The sound design is just awesome. That's sort of one of the first times in the Star Wars in the chronology of Star Wars filmmaking and TV making, I think that we've seen such overt sound design in a way that like really kind of has that pause. And then of course we sort of saw something like it with the explosion in Last Jedi with the the jump to hyperspace. So just a really cool idea. Glad to see them call back and kind of remind us that this is in fact the same ship, the same family, the same Fett family. But yeah, I mean the whole sequence I thought was pretty great. I think the whole escape and the way that Cara Dune and Fennec were involved as the snipers on the hill kind of really solidified this episode for me as just a leaps and bounds better than the kind of equivalent Prison Break, if you will, episode from last season, where it's like a similar kind of band of thieves out on a mission. I thought this band of thieves was at least a group that we have spent time with. All of them, we liked them all, I think, a little bit more, and so it was really cool seeing them pull off the escape. It was pretty classic. And yeah, just everything like we said already with the dialogue scene about with the officer was great. Nice building of tension, and he was a little cartoony with how sinister he was, but at the end of the day, I thought he definitely provided a lot of good tension and kind of forced our heroes to make no other decision except for the ones they made.
Jeremy, what about you? And Dan, I agree with all that. I'll add a couple things, but Jeremy, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I just that scene, like the tension is so good, and I think they do such a nice job too of going like when Mayfeld first comes back in to kind of save the day the first time by going, oh no, he's a little hard of hearing. He just couldn't hear what you're saying. He lost his hearing in an explosion. Then the tension goes down, but then it immediately goes right back up when he's like, you can't go away just yet. I need to have a drink. And it was just such a good job of like, which way is this going to go? And then for them to seem like they actually are going to get out of it. But the reason that they don't is because Mayfeld is so clearly affected by his past, which, like we've been saying, this whole episode is just such an interesting exploration of, things that we hadn't really explored before. I mean, in the sequel trilogy, we get it a lot closer than we ever had before with Finn and some of his explorations of similar stuff, but it's just such an interesting dynamic, and to add that into the tension of everything else going on in that scene, I just thought it was really, really well done. And as Dan had said, the seismic charge as the back end of that, it's just such a cool sound effect. Like, honestly, forget about all the other nuance of everything else. Like, that just sounds so cool.
That's great.
It was just really well, like, from the tension to the release of that was just excellent. Really, really liked it. I had written down as I was watching it, like when I was taking my notes and they got into that part, I was like, oh, Mayfeld is 100% going to die. Like, no shot he makes it out. That'll be the payoff that we need. His story has been seen through here. Now that he had that moment, he won't make it out. I was happy to have not necessarily been correct on that, but it just felt really complete and nice. And, the great job. Really enjoyed everything about the whole from that sequence on.
Yeah, same here. One thing I want to point out that you hit on, one of the consistent complaints I've had about this show every once in a while is when things just happen. It's just one thing after another. They don't necessarily lead into each other. I'm thinking of the spider episode, for example, where it's okay, now spiders are going to show up. Here, they end up having to have a shootout to get out of the building, and it's because of a choice that one of the characters made. And it's a choice that comes from an emotionally complicated place. So I thought that was a great direction for that scene to take. A few other things. I mentioned the payoff of Mando taking off his helmet. I loved that. Loved the whole tension of the scene. I pointed it out before, but when Mando kind of shakes his head no, that's when I start to get even more tense. And that's something that would not work nearly as well if he was wearing his helmet and you couldn't see the look on his face. And then the moment where Mayfield pulls the trigger and Mando again just kind of looks at him like, again, the look on his face, just like, oh crap, like what the hell did you just do? We mentioned it was it felt a little bit inspired by Tarantino. Specifically, I was thinking of Christoph Waltz actually and Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained. There's this tense conversation. You know that Christoph Waltz wants to kill Leonardo DiCaprio, but he can't. Is he going to? And there's that tension throughout the whole scene. I did think it was a little bit hypocritical for Mayfield to shoot the officer, kill all those people, then blow up half the building, because part of this conversation was about the collateral damage, people that get pulled into the war and then get killed for this cause. They didn't really choose. How many people in that building, were just there because they were victims of circumstance, killed a lot of stormtroopers, but it was a snap decision. It was an emotional decision. So I get it. And you guys, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Sorry. Are we sure that he blew up the whole base? I think the more you talk about it, I don't know if it was super clear that he didn't just blow up.
Was it maybe just the explosive material?
I don't know.
Okay, maybe it was
Good question.
All right.
There were definitely some side casualties, though. Like the guy that stares at him with the tray as a notable one.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's just a question of quantity. That's the only example.
Right.
I mean, that's the only
if it's only
question.
like
That guy,
three, it's fine.
forgot his extra milk, and he's like, "Oh, you know what? I really wanted that extra milk today. Let me go back." Oh, you got to be kidding me! And then he walked into that.
Hey, not to mention, by the way, how often have we seen people do this, where they put on a stormtrooper outfit just to infiltrate and get some mission done? How many other missions are going on right now? How do they know they're the only good guys wearing stormtrooper armor? They might have just killed somebody who's in their own show that's got their own quest, is trying to rescue somebody, and they just got killed.
If only there were some other shows set in the same timeline as The Mandalorian. I guess we'll never know.
I love it.
Preview of coming attractions there.
We will get to that definitely. And let's jump to the chat. A lot of comments here. The Lowdown Show says Boba Fett new armor paint job was nice, and he follows that by Diane Abella says he has a new purpose, so he wanted some new gear. So that's what's with the new paint job. Yeah. I am curious what's going to happen with Boba Fett at the end of this season. Is he going to continue to be a recurring character on Mandalorian? They announced 1 billion new spinoffs, and Boba Fett wasn't one of them. So I am curious what his place is going to be in the Star Wars universe after all this.
Mm-hmm. He was kind of a glorified getaway car driver in this episode, which I didn't mind. Like last episode was sort of his starring role, his like return to the center stage, but Boba Fett's. But yeah, I think it is definitely interesting to see what their plans are for him moving forward.
Yeah, and I imagine he'll have another chance to shine in the finale in this fight against Moff Gideon, but we'll see. The Lowdown Show, by the way, also says the terminal where I was complaining about the face scan. He says, I think it was a scan for wanted criminals and Republic people like Kara and Fennec. I agree with that, but I think if I were to design the terminal, it wouldn't be as long as you're not on this list you get through. It would be you can only get through if you're on this list, like if you're a registered Stormtrooper, Imperial guy or gal. But anyway, from there, we leave the battle. They killed the TIE fighters, and they let Mayfield go. He's ready to head back to prison. He's accepted his fate, but they decide to pretend that he got killed in the battle, and he leaves. So what did you think of that choice, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess initially I had also was considering all the maybe extra casualties that could have happened there. Maybe there were less than we thought, but I did think it was a slightly curious because it was such a, after all the morally gray stuff, she is kind of like, hey, you know what? Maybe he's a good guy. Like after all that destruction. But it was fun. It was a nice little, he sort of like paid his debt back by helping them out. So they turned the other cheek. I was okay with it.
Yeah, no, me too. I liked it. I also liked, there was a moment after all the carnage when they kind of killed a few of the stormtroopers right before they left the building, where Mayfield hands the helmet back to Mando and says, you did what you had to do. I never saw your face. And I kind of like the fact that Mayfield clearly has all this cynicism. He questions Mando's beliefs over and over, but clearly he still has some respect for these. He acknowledges that the Mandalorian has this belief system, and I'm going to respect that. And so I think he earned Mando's respect. He earned Cara Dune's respect. And after last season's episode, I didn't really feel like I needed to see him again. After this episode, I wouldn't mind a return. So I like that they let him go, and I'm sure he'll pop up again sometime next season. But it's not where the episode wraps up, because then we cut to Moff Gideon's Imperial starship, and he gets a hologram message from the Mandalorian, essentially saying, you have something I want. It means more to me than you'll ever understand. Basically, I'm coming for you. Dan, what did you think of this ending?
I thought it was a clever callback to Moff Gideon's speech at the end of the same season, season 1, episode 7. So I thought that was a nice way of upping the ante, and it clearly rubbed Moff Gideon the wrong way. Yeah, I think this is now the 3rd episode this season that has sort of ended on the same kind of, cliffhanger, quote unquote. Meanwhile, back on Moff Gideon's ship, he's just been staring out at space the whole time and contemplating his next move. And we don't really get anything substantial from him except this update that teases what comes next week. So I think this sort of speaks to our ongoing wishes that this season had a more substantial Moff Gideon, role in the kind of way that like Bill Burr was in this week. A really substantial supporting role. I think it's unlikely that we're going to get that, other than maybe a few scenes in the finale, just because of the way that they've set up the geography almost, or the way they've set up the game board here, where he is very much the kind of stock character, unfortunately, of the Imperial officer on the ship. Actually, I meant to throw this to you guys. This was the first episode where we have not seen Grogu at all. What did you think? Did you miss him?
Oh, that's I noticed that we hadn't seen him, but it didn't occur to me that it's the first time we've done an episode without him. I can't say I really missed him that much, to be honest. I don't know, Jeremy, what do you think?
Wrong answer. We've just been canceled.
YouTube just shut the stream down.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did. The thought did occur to me too. I guess not really, which is more of a testament to that I enjoyed everything else was going on in the episode. I guess Bill Burr was enough of a comic relief, lighthearted stuff where we didn't need to also keep cutting back to baby Grogu playing with something different on the ship or something like that. So I was okay. Or maybe if there was, what they could have done, they could have, if he hadn't been captured, we could have gotten some fun. Boba Fett has to sit Grogu on the ship while Mando and co attack the base.
What a missed opportunity!
Wow.
There's always. I don't know what's going to happen. But
the Babysitters Club, the Mandalorian Babysitters Club.
Yeah. But I that is true. That is interesting. And in terms of the Moff Gideon stuff, that moment was awesome. It was a fun, you're like fired up and want to run through a wall. And it's like, oh man, the only thing that I don't like about it is that I don't want to be going into the episode feeling like we have the upper hand, like that Mando. Like I want Moff Gideon to be set up as this, like he has the advantage on everything. And right now it very much feels like no, they're going at him like they're in the driver's seat with the intensity of that message. So like cool moment. I'm excited for whatever happens next, but I feel like I just keep saying the same stuff. And Dan kind of hit it on the head there too. It does feel like Moff Gideon is just the insert Imperial guy here, which is only really a shame because of how good Giancarlo is, obviously.
Right. Yeah, that we've talked about stakes earlier in the season, how we wish the stakes had been raised by showing us how formidable a foe Moff Gideon actually is. So far, it's just been, he has a lot of toys. He has dark troopers, he has a big ship, but we really haven't seen him play a chess game where he outsmarts the Mandalorian. And even when we saw the dark troopers in action, so far all we know about them is they can fly and they can pick things up. We didn't really see them battle at all. And if maybe they showed up and, I don't know, killed one of our protagonists or just somehow showed us they are dangerous, Moff Gideon is not someone to be trifled with. But we haven't really seen that. So there are stakes because he has Grogu, but I don't think any of us really think they're not going to get Grogu back by the end of the finale. So I wish the stakes were a little bit higher, but like you said, it doesn't stop me from being excited to see what happens next. Also, I don't remember seeing the Mandalorian in hologram form before, but I just have to point out it looked really cool. We've seen a lot of holograms. Something about this one just looked awesome. Like I wish I could have on my desk a little mini Mandalorian hologram. I will say I found it, I'm not sure the purpose of sending that hologram. It's sort of telegraphing, hey, we're coming. So the element of surprise is totally gone. Part of me enjoyed seeing it. It looked awesome. It was kind of a tease for us, just saying, here's what's coming next episode. But I wasn't sure it would have made sense to send that hologram, in advance of attacking the enemy.
Very like Liam Neeson in Taken. It was that kind of, vibe.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, it's an it's a warning. It's like head game. He's just trying to get in his head. And I did like that I don't know if they intended this when they wrote the dialogue for Moff Gideon saying that last season, but I did like the idea because all of those words certainly apply, and more so to Mando and how much he cares about Grogu. So I thought it was a nice choice, and it made for a satisfying, button on this episode. Definitely an interesting strategy. I'm curious to see what they have up their sleeve, for the start of the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple comments in the chat. Yasi says, I think Mayfield was sympathetic toward Mando because he saw how vulnerable he got without his helmet and saw Mando found that moment or that thing more important than his long-kept belief. Totally agree with that. And that was an aspect of the episode I thoroughly enjoyed. The Lowdown Show says, this episode reminds me of George Lucas saying, it's like poetry, everything rhymes. And I think, Dan, you were just alluding to that, where Mando's throwing back in Moff Gideon's face basically the exact line he used on him last season. And that is an aspect of it I really enjoyed.
That's a good call.
I guess with that, before we jump into, I want to talk a little bit about the billion Star Wars shows that got announced a few days ago. Before we jump to that, any other thoughts on this episode we didn't get to? Dan?
Let's see. Gotta mention the Easter eggs. The TPS reports are now canon, which I thought was kind of clever. I also like the TK. It's in that same scene, the TK number, which is a callback to kind of a double Easter egg, but a callback to TK 421, which is in A New Hope. I guess I'm thinking of that thing has been referenced as Easter eggs in other things, like in, I think, Boogie Nights. They've used that with like the radio, but just a lot of little subtle things like that, which I thought were nice. So
awesome. Jeremy, what about you? Anything to add?
No, not really. I was going along with my notes. I hit every note I took. I feel good.
All right. Awesome. Well, let's mention that the finale is next week. That's going to be the last episode this season. And I can't believe how quickly it went by. I think we should, we got to brainstorm, guys, and see what we can come up with to make the next week's live stream maybe a little bit special. We've done our countdowns, our watch parties, where we count down to something airing, but I think this on the East Coast will be coming out probably around 3 a.m. So I don't think we'll be doing the countdown.
It's perfect. Yeah.
But all right, let's do it. I'll see you here at midnight and grab some coffee. We'll make it happen. But let's try and think of something special to do, something fun. One way or another, though, we'll be here. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you get notified when we go live. And you can jump into the chat and talk to us. But with that, let's talk about all the many shows that got announced. We don't have to go into every detail of it. But I'm just curious, of all the Star Wars announcements we heard, Jeremy, which is the one that has you most excited?
I think I'm more overwhelmed, honestly, than I am excited, but it's just so much stuff, and but there's all the Marvel stuff too. They just and the Mighty Ducks, like this 20 million things.
Whoa, what happened with Mighty Ducks? I missed that one.
They're doing like a series that takes place after the end of D3.
Okay, and they're bringing back Coach Bombay, right?
Yeah. Emilio's coming back. Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls is involved also. There's just a lot. There's just so much stuff. Like, I feel like I haven't even. My brain keeps resetting. I mean, the lead. It's hard to not be excited about like an Obi-Wan thing being officially announced. And like the reaction to Hayden Christensen being involved as Darth Vader has been like overwhelmingly positive in a way that I think is sometimes puzzling when you think about it, because he is. I mean, there's a lot of things that get criticized about Star Wars. He's in the top 10, I would think. Jar Jar, Ewoks, Hayden Christensen, George Lucas's dialogue.
Well, there's been a weird reversal, I feel like, over time. As we've gotten further away from the prequels, people are definitely putting on layer after layer of rose-colored glasses. Absolutely. People are saying, I want George Lucas back in charge of the franchise. Like 5 years ago, that is not what you were saying.
Right.
But Jeremy, keep going.
Yeah, no, I'm just so like intrigued by all that. Like, obviously, I'm very excited for an Obi-Wan show and more content there. So I guess that would be the thing I'm most excited about. But I'm excited for all of it. I'll definitely give all of it my time.
Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jeremy. A little overwhelming. Just if nothing else, the realization that I'm going to basically be a lifetime subscriber of Disney Plus now. I sort of have no other choice. But I think the one that kind of excited me the most, I think it might have been the Ahsoka series. It's a limited series. I think the thing I was most apprehensive about is, just is giving every idea under the sun its own like 4 or 5 episode series, because I'm very wary of just oversaturation and to the nth degree. So I think limited series, and I noticed they coined a new term as far as I could tell, event series. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw them using that word.
Called the Obi-Wan series and the Lando series an event series, which I'm curious to see what that means. Maybe maybe it's like a blitz where they release an episode a day for a week or something. So I'm curious to see how they manage this whole rollout. It's very exciting. Kind of have mixed feelings about the Obi-Wan series. I'm thrilled to see Ewan McGregor back. He's basically one of, if not the best thing about the prequel trilogies for me. He's right up there. The only thing that kind of gives me pause on that one is, without getting too much into the weeds, I'm a little concerned about the way in which an Obi-Wan prequel series like that takes place halfway between the two trilogies kind of unintentionally undermines and dilutes the power of, the scene in A New Hope when they reunite again on the Death Star and Vader says, "I've been waiting for you. The circle is now complete." That moment, everything about that moment in the original movie is based on the fact that the last time they saw each other, Obi-Wan nearly killed him and left him for dead, and it's been 20 years, and look how much has changed. And so I'm a little concerned about trying to split hairs and say, well, they had some forced Skype calls, kind of like Ben and Ray did, and they didn't see each other in the flesh, but so I just hope that is handled with enough nuance to kind of not rob us of how powerful that moment in New Hope is. But overall, I can't pretend I'm not excited. So.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. If I were to say which one I'm most intrigued by, it probably was the announcement that Hayden Christensen is returning to Obi-Wan, or to the series in the Obi-Wan series. But I have that same kind of apprehension where I'm very, very curious how they're going to pull that off, because it does feel a little bit like, well, actually, they did see each other one other time and had a rematch we never mentioned. I think they even used the term, somebody involved in the production, it might have been Ewan McGregor, used the term rematch, I think. Saying, we're going to get the rematch everyone's been waiting for. And I was like, no, really? We saw it in the 70s.
We already got it. Yeah.
We saw the rematch.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm really curious to see how they pull that off. I'm excited by it, because if they do pull it off, it could be very cool. But I think the one that I'm just most excited for in terms of, I think this could be a great show, it's The Acolyte, which is from the same Leslie Headland who made Russian Doll, where they announced it's going to be a Disney Plus series, and they called it a mystery thriller. So I'm just excited for this because, I am looking forward to Ahsoka. I'm looking forward to Rangers of the New Republic, but I expect both of them to be very in keeping with the tone of The Mandalorian. They're called spin-offs of The Mandalorian. So to me, it almost sounds like here's 16 more episodes focused on different characters. But I think one of the things we've all been excited about is expanding the Star Wars universe lets you try new things, lets you try different genres in this universe. And that's what this sounds like. So I'm excited for all this stuff, but that's maybe the one I'm most intrigued by and looking forward to. But we will certainly be talking about all of it here. So if I didn't mention it already, make sure you're subscribed, hit that bell icon. And while you're at it, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Make Jeremy feel good. Turn Dan's frown upside down.
Old Brown Eyes needs a smile.
What is that? Is that a reference to something?
That's you, Gil. Your Brown Eyes.
Oh, thank you.
No, in the episode, he called Mando Brown Eyes.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. How could I forget? So with that, let's wrap up. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next One Take. And now my tech guy's not here, so I have to figure out how to end this stream. So everyone just wait patiently. All right, I think I found the button. So take care, everyone.